Hello and welcome to another segment of Vets Remembered. I am sitting here with a gentleman who was a doctor of dentistry, who was named Dr. John Gauvin, and he had served in the United States Army as a major in the theater of Burma, and he had very fascinating history. He even has a young lady that is helping him write his history, and rightfully so. This gentleman has just a fascinating and plethora of information that he'd like to share with us. And I would like to introduce Dr. John Gauvin.
Thank you, sir. They asked me to do the talk on World War II, and especially that in the Far East. World War II started December 7th, 1941, when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor. And my talk will involve how the military took me all the way around the world. That first, I'll give you a little example of just where I was involved, then I'll tell you more about what happened in each area.
Mm-hmm.
First, I graduated from dental school at University of Minnesota, went down to St. Louis, down to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, and then to medical field service school in Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania, then to overseas, across the Atlantic, to North Africa, where they held me up quite a while to help get the troops ready, and then to the Mediterranean, Suez Canal. The Dead Sea was a hot place. The Indian Ocean was bigger, wider than I thought. Then to Bombay, across India, Calcutta, up to the India-Burma border where the Japs had just about gone through it. Down into Burma for 2.5 years, back down to Calcutta, down the Asian Peninsula, across around the foot of the Asia to the Singapore, then back up to the Philippines, over to Washington State, and across the United States. They stopped in South Dakota to get some pheasant, and then to Fort McCoy in Wisconsin, where I was discharged.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happened after they bombed Pearl Harbor, and I took the final exams at the dental school, 2.5 days of practical, making crowns and gold foil, and 2.5 days of written. Then they went down to Milwaukee to take the Wisconsin State Board, 2.5 days of practical, and then 2.5 days of written. And then back up to Minneapolis, to 2.5 days of practical, making crowns and so forth, and 2.5 days of written for the Minnesota State Board.
Oh my gosh.
And then I was inducted. I about had it after those tests, but I was inducted into the Army Air Corps. And they sent me to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, which is located just outside of St. Louis, on the banks of the Mississippi, just about. And the new recruits were coming in there by the dozens. We had 90 dentists there in 3 dental clinics. And each dental clinic had 2 shifts, so the last shift got through 11 o'clock at night. Once in a while we got into St. Louis for a little while. I went to the theater one time in that paddle boat. They had a little theater of that on the Mississippi. that they called me into the hospital to see if this patient had trench mouth. Now, some flu was going around. They said I had to wear a mask. Well, my assistant wore a mask. I didn't, because trench mouth has a particular odor, and once you get it, you never forget it. And I went in there. I left my mask off anyhow. He wore his. Incidentally, he got the flu with the mask on, and I didn't get the flu with the mask off. But this patient didn't have, he had some sores, but he didn't have trench mouth. But the recruits, a lot of the recruits, their mouths were in bad shape because they hadn't had much attention from the hills of Kentucky and so forth. And they kept us 90 dentists hopping because people were coming in, just an awful lot of people to keep us separated. And after about 3 months in there, they sent me to the medical field service school at Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. And there they taught us how to do dentistry and medicine out in the field. And then they'd have, like, on some of the hikes, instead of bombs, the little sacks of flour. So I got doused with flour a few times. And so what kind of equipment we have out in the field with our dental stuff. And then if we go from that to a little trip with the different part of your battalion, what you could carry for emergencies, like disinfecting solution or anesthetic and so forth, what you'd have in that section and so forth, and how to treat them out in the field. And after a month of that, back to St. Louis, Jefferson Barracks for about a month. And then they sent me to Hampton Roads, Virginia, to go overseas. Before I went to Hampton Roads, they let me go home for a day or two before they sent me overseas. And at Hampton Roads, they had a clinic there. They put me in the clinic till I went overseas, because with that many troops moving, there always have somebody that having some tooth trouble, even though they've been supposedly checked. We couldn't check them too good because there's so many being shoved through. So I worked in that clinic till they put me in a troop ship. And our troop ship started out 100 troop ships. And the way they worked it is made these 100 in a line, they zigzag back and forth. It took us 21 days to cross the Atlantic. And what was the troop ship like? Well, they stacked the enlisted men 5 deep. The posts come up here and the posts on the other end, and then 5 bars going across so they could put the hammocks from the bars on each end. And the post in the middle, they put the duffel bags on the post, and then the stack of 5 on, up and down. In the officers' quarters were stacked 3 deep.